There's this secret network running through your entire body, a kind of biological internet that connects some of the most unlikely places you can imagine. Today, we're going to trace that network, and trust me, you'll be surprised where it ends up.
So let's just jump right in with a puzzle. What could your kidneys, the things that filter your blood, possibly have in common with your brain, the organ that holds your every thought and memory? I mean, they seem like they're from different planets, right? But the answer connects them in a way that's absolutely fundamental to how we all work.
All right, to crack this puzzle, we've got to start with that connection itself. And our first stop is actually inside the kidney's own personal lifeline.
Okay, so we all kind of know what kidneys do. They're our body's filtration system. But just look at the setup here. They're plugged right into the abdominal aorta, which is basically the main highway for blood in your body. This means they get a massive nonstop supply to purify. It's a huge job. But this is really just plumbing. So where does the brain fit into all this? Well, for that, we need to zoom in. A lot. To find that link, we have to shrink down from the scale of organs and arteries to something totally microscopic. We need to meet the fundamental building block of this entire secret network, the neuron. 86 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the best estimate for how many neurons are packed inside the human brain. It's a number so big, it's almost meaningless. It's more than 10 times the number of people on Earth, all firing away inside your skull right now. Which, of course, brings up a pretty obvious question. How? I mean, it's not like you can just line them up and do a head count, right? So how in the world did scientists get to a number that specific? Well, it turns out the answer is a really clever piece of biological accounting. So the method they use is just brilliant. Instead of trying to count every single neuron one by one, which would be impossible, they basically turn the brain into a kind of consistent soup. No, really. Then they take just a few tiny samples of that brain soup, count the neurons in those little samples, and then use statistics to scale that number up for the entire brain. It's not a direct count, it's just really, really smart sampling. And the scale of these individual cells is just wild. The main part of the cell is microscopic, but its axon, that's the cable it uses to send signals, can be unbelievably long. Get this, a single neuron can start in your lower back and run all the way down to your big toe. That's one cell. That's a meter long. And yet it's still so thin you'd need a microscope to see it. So we've got 86 billion of these incredible cells. But that brings us to the next big mystery. If they're all basically the same type of cell, how can they be responsible for literally everything we do, from feeling a cool breeze to understanding quantum physics? And here's the paradox. Every single neuron, whether it's for sensing touch, firing a muscle, or thinking a complex thought, has the same basic hardware. A cell body, some dendrites to get signals, and an axon to send them out. The parts are all the same. So how do you get such completely different jobs from the same blueprint? I think the best way to understand this is with an analogy. Think of all those neurons like the strings on a guitar. Every string is pretty much the same piece of wire, but it's the tuning of that string and its arrangement with all the other strings that creates the music. It's the exact same idea for neurons. It's not about the string itself. It's all about its tuning and its connectivity. So first, let's talk tuning. You can think of this as each neuron's individual personality. Is it really jumpy and quick to fire, or is it more laid back and needs a lot of convincing? Does it shout its signal, or does it whisper? That personality all comes down to its unique mix of chemicals and electrical properties. And the second piece of the puzzle is connectivity. This is basically the neuron's social network. Who is it talking to? Who's it listening to? Is it part of a tiny local group chat, or is it connected to a long-distance network that spans different regions of the brain? A neuron's job is defined by who it's connected to. Okay, so if you want to see this whole idea of specialization in action, there's no better place to look than the brain's own little supercomputer. It's a structure at the back of your head called the cerebellum. I mean, just look at this chart. It's not even close. This little structure, the cerebellum, holds around 70 billion of our total 86 billion neurons. Let that sink in. Most of your brain's processing power is packed into this one small area. So why? Why cram so much hardware into such a tiny space? Well, the answer is its job. It's the master of fine-tuning movement. Every single smooth, coordinated thing you do,
from walking without thinking about it to catching a baseball, is being constantly managed by your cerebellum. It's like a real-time error correction computer. It's always comparing what you intended to do with what your body is actually doing and sending out millions of tiny adjustments. A job like that requires an absolutely massive amount of processing power, and that's why it needs all those neurons. Okay, so we've seen how neurons are counted, and we've seen how they specialize. Now it's time to connect all the dots and finally solve that mystery we started with. What does any of this have to do with your kidneys? And here it is. The answer to what your kidneys and your brain have in common is neurons. That's right. Your nervous system isn't just stuck in your head and your spine. It's a system-wide web that extends into almost every part of your body. Now, obviously, these aren't thinking neurons. They're part of what's called the autonomic nervous system. Think of it as the body's automatic control panel. The nerves in your kidneys are critical. They help manage blood flow, they adjust the rate of filtration on the fly, and they even help regulate hormones. So the brain and the kidneys are linked by this shared building block, and they're constantly talking to each other to keep the whole system running smoothly. So, we have 86 billion neurons, all tuned and connected across the entire body in this incredibly complex blueprint. How on earth do scientists even begin to understand it all? Well, to decode it, they build models. To make sense of this complexity, scientists use mathematical models. But there's a catch. It's always a trade-off. On one hand, you can use a simple model that's great for simulating huge networks of millions of neurons at once. But it's not very detailed. On the other hand, you can use a super complex, incredibly accurate model that simulates a single neuron perfectly, but it's too complicated to use for the whole brain. So you always have to choose, do you want the big picture or do you want the super fine details? But here's the final and maybe coolest twist. The firing of any single neuron is actually kind of random and unpredictable. So how do we get reliable, predictable actions, like catching a ball? Well, think of it like this. Picture a huge stadium full of people clapping. Any one person's clapping might be a little offbeat or random, but when 80,000 people are all clapping together, you get a powerful, predictable rhythm. By using statistics, scientists can bridge that exact gap, from the random clap of a single neuron to the reliable rhythm of the whole system. And all of this leaves us with one last, really deep thought. We've seen that everything, from a simple muscle twitch to our most complex creative ideas, is just the result of these 86 billion cellular strings, each one tuned and connected in a very precise way. So if all of our behaviors and thoughts are just the music played by these finely tuned circuits, what does that really mean for who we are, for consciousness itself? It's the ultimate question that this incredible secret network asks of us.